Hey everyone, this is Mikedot and I'm here with my bro Afromania and welcome back to the podcast. Today is Sunday, 11th, and it's a pretty good day because it is Super Bowl Sunday. I know I got my brother in his Eagles outfit and he's ready to go, but we're here to talk about video games. So how are you doing today?
Yeah, man, I'm doing great. Like you said, it's Super Bowl Sunday, where the sports is being played in America, and whatever is happening, it's going to be a great game where the quarterback throws to the wide receiver for 7 points. This is going to be a big show, and that player got injured, and somebody won MVP, and yeah, we won, America.
Yeah, go team.
Exactly.
Okay, that's my extent for sports. Anyway, we are here to talk about video games, however, so no sports, or that's it's a sports video game, but we're not talking about that either. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on in the industry right now, and I'd like my bro Afromedia to lead me into the topics for today.
Yes, the topics. So one of the topics to really kind of kicked up our podcast is I don't know. Have you had the opportunity to see a new show? Actually, it's a spinoff of the Sonic movie series that you watched. It's actually called Knuckles, which is going to be a 6-part television series that's going to drop on Paramount Plus, which focuses on the Kinda Warrior Knuckles, played by Idris Elba. Also bringing back other people from the movie. We got Colin O'Shaughnessy as Tails. We got Tika Sumpter as Mandy, Roy McCain, Kid Cudi, and Adam Pally coming back as Wade to reprise some of the roles, except Kid Cudi and Roy McCain. Actually, they're two members to the new show. So actually, what did you think about the first two Sonic films?
Oh, okay, so I think I said this in the last episode. First movie was okay.
Yeah.
I came in expecting myself to hate it, but it was actually pretty decent.
Okay.
Second movie was a little better, but it was a little bit I would say schlocky. It still had that Hollywood schlock to it, where they had to add in product placements and characters that really didn't need to be there, and story plot holes here and there, but it was still an enjoyable experience. I am looking forward to the third one because this is going to be where Shadow comes in, and I'm wondering how he's going to play a role in the movie. And so far, it's looking pretty good. And as you mentioned, the Knuckles animated series looks pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
It seems to have near equal quality to the movies. It's just hopefully it won't be as schlocky, but if they can keep that fan service going, because Sonic shows have been hit and miss. Like you had the Sonic, the Sat AM cartoon, you had the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon, and then you had abysmal things like Sonic Underground, but we don't talk about that. We do talk about stuff like Sonic X, which was pretty decent besides from some of the human characters that were in the show. And then we had more recent stuff like Sonic Boom, which was actually really, really good, especially when the humor, because you can tell that the writers really love Sonic and they were very in tune with the Sonic fandom. So the show had a lot of jokes that were very much Sonic focused, and the writing had no business being as good as it was. So I was really happy with that show. So if it can have that kind of energy going towards the Knuckles animated series, I think it'll be very good.
Yeah, no, I'm actually kind of excited to actually see this 6-part series too, actually, because this is going to be the lead up into Sonic 3, because it takes place between the second and the third film. So I'm actually kind of looking forward to it. The fact that Idris Elba coming back to reprise his role in the character I think is fantastic. I think he was actually one of the most wonderful delights in the film in terms of his dry humor and the wit, and the fact that he plays the stoic warrior Kenda and basically is always serious, and that kind of lends into his comedy a little bit, which I thought is great. You still do have that weird pair up where you still have like this weird animal creature cartoon pairing up with a human character still being the lead off into it, so you'll still get some of the corny schlocky-ness that you don't want in Finn. But again, it's a good model that it's worked, that is being transferred. And like you said, I agree, that same kind of quality that was from the movies seems to be transferring its way onto Paramount Plus, which is good. And you can almost argue that Paramount Plus kind of may need a little bit of a win because of how Halo was received. So let's hope that Knuckles kind of lives up to the tale, man. Yeah, but I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, very much so. All right, so what else you got for me?
Yeah, so just a couple of days ago, PlayStation actually did another state of play, and this is for actually a big AAA game. Everybody knows it as Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which is actually supposed to drop really soon in February 29th of this year. It is based on the iconic remake of the 1997 game, and instead of getting one big game, we're going to get it in 3 major parts, with 7 remake already dropping back around 2020, I believe. Is that correct?
I'm not too sure.
Okay. I think somewhere around that 2020, 2021. So we're now, this is going to be part 2 of 3 of the trilogy, which basically introduces brand new combat, actually more robust combat, bigger maps, and a really unique idea to the story that I think they're going to continue expanding the story. But from what I'm guessing, it's definitely living to its work about a reimagination of the original game, because it does seem like they have now decided to move some of the timelines between, I believe, Crisis Core, which was, I think, an old PlayStation Portable play. I believe so, right?
What was that?
Crisis Core, right? Final Fantasy VII Crisis Core I think was a part of it.
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, I think they're starting to move the story around a little bit with certain characters now. And from what I've seen, again, visually it looks pretty good, although there's been issues about the demo in terms of graphics are concerned. But from what I've seen, it looks pretty nice and looks pretty decent, though. But other than that, what are your takes on that state of play of the Final Fantasy VII Part 2, if you think about it?
Okay, so I had some issues with the Final Fantasy VII Remake, mostly due to the story beats. While the story beats were the same, it tried too hard to try to subvert expectations, and while some people were okay with it, I wasn't really okay with it. I was looking forward to a game that sticks closely to the original story as possible, while just enhancing the gameplay and modernizing the combat, which it did. But the story beats, it was a little upsetting to have all those plot ghosts flying around and having Sephiroth being introduced way too early in the story when they barely left like Midgar. And it was just like they were trying way too hard to subvert expectations, and that's not really what I wanted from my Final Fantasy VII Remake. However, it seems like they are taking the feedback to heart. They're taking the feedback to heart, and they are now having a story that more closely resembles the original story from Final Fantasy VII. And of course, there's still little bits of like alterations here and there. Like Zack, for instance, has a more prominent role than he did in the original, which I'm okay with, as long as, again, doesn't like beat off the path too much. And the combat still looks good. It still looks like it's gonna have a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of stuff for the fans. But overall, I think it's just gonna be an improvement to the game. Now, that being said, I've not looked at the game. I have not looked at the demo. I'm trying to avoid looking at that because I kind of want to just play and watch on my own, like, you know, my own watch. So yeah, if they can like make it the game that I'm hoping they originally wanted to make it, or at least hoping that it's going to be the kind of experience that I want, which was, again, a game that just sticks closely to the original story, but was like, you know, action combat and all that, then I think it'll be good.
And before we move on, what did you thought when they announced that this remake was going to be separated into 3 parts? What was your take when you heard about that?
I mean, I'm perfectly fine with that because technically the first game is in 4 parts, i.e., 4 discs. So,
and just to let people know, this game is going to be 2 discs if you decided to buy the physical version. It's going to be separated in 2 parts. And
yeah, it makes sense. I mean, again, I'm perfectly fine with it being episodic, technically, in a way, because like I said, the original game was technically episodic because it was separated in 4 discs, and back in the day, I treated that as 4 different acts, so 4 different sides of the story that you have to go through one by one. And while it's a lot of extra weight to carry around and a lot of physical media you have to carry around, I don't mind it.
I mean, that is true, but this back in the day, like I said, there were 4 acts under 1 disc. This is about to be a game that may be spread in the course of maybe 6 to 7 years.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd say that's fine because obviously they're trying to up the scale and the whole span of the game world, because obviously the original game had a pretty big world, but it was not as graphically as intensive as this is.
Yeah, definitely the technology has improved a mighty long way since 97.
Exactly. So obviously it's going to take a while to get the whole story out. But again, it's just as long as the quality shines through, as long as the gameplay is good, and as long as the story remains consistent to what the diehard fans want, then you'll be fine.
Okay, cool. Like I said, I enjoy what I have seen before. I haven't actually played the first one yet. I would like to. Do you think they'll ever maybe make a bundle where you'll get all 3 of them down the road?
Yeah, obviously.
I might end up doing that.
That's probably gonna be super expensive though.
Why not? I mean, at that point, might as well. Might as well go out that way.
Yeah, that's probably
enjoy the entire experience.
Yep. I assume that's what they're going to do eventually.
It's going to be a long experience.
It's going to be very long, but at least it'll be fun to see how it is from start to finish.
Yeah, I agree. And with that, we're actually going to lead into our main topic, and it's actually quite great that we started out with Final Fantasy VII, because did you know that Final Fantasy VII back in 1997, ironically, actually was the first real AAA game, one of the first. Did you know that?
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it was the production quality and everything about that. Basically, actually, around back in the day was 45 million, which is now 82 million based on inflation numbers. So yeah, so with that being said, AAA games have kind of gotten much more expensive. Maybe to the point where they may not be stable at the moment.
They absolutely aren't. It's not even a matter of maybe. They straight up are not sustainable at the moment. These companies are just having massive budgets with very little return. Well, I wouldn't say very little return, but these budgets are just ballooning to the fact that they're millions and sometimes even billions of dollars are going into these games, and the returns on them are not looking good. For instance, Cyberpunk 2077, 400 million, Spider-Man 2, PS5, 300 million, Last of Us Part 2, nearly 300 million, and it's just not being
almost all of them at half the billion ranges if you think about it.
Yeah, exactly. And basically they're having the same problem when it comes to Hollywood movies, where these games need to make back double their budget in order to be considered profitable. Correct. And these games aren't doing that. And then along with that, you have companies having to up their prices with insane DLC and live service models, stuff like Ubisoft saying that we need to make these games $70 because this is a quadruple A experience, which of course rightfully so, the internet memed on that as hard as they could, and it's just no, this is not gonna last.
So just to hold off on that, I understand that video game prices have jumped, but I think from what I've read, that not by much. Like I think games were still a little expensive back in the day.
Yeah, obviously they were. They
like
were
around
like
what, 60?
yeah, they were 60, 70, just like they are.
So it
today.
really wasn't that much of a jump. But
Mhm.
where they're trying to make more money off of you, like you said, is the special editions. That's where they're trying to get more of their bones or the extra DLC costs that are put onto it.
Yeah.
Would that be right?
Yeah, it is. But the thing is that back in the day, when you release a game, that was it.
Well,
there was no like,
obviously, yes.
There's no like patches. There's no like extra DLC that you could tack on, so you didn't have the excuse of release it now, patch it later. When you release a game, that's it, and the consumer market is going to judge you based on that release and that release only. They didn't have that luxury, so they had to make sure that that game was quality as much as possible.
Yes.
Unlike today, where they could just release something just give a half-hearted like apology message on Twitter and say like, we'll fix it later, sorry, and they don't actually like, learn anything from that. And then on top of that, you got like massive layoffs in the industry where people are just letting talent go left and right, and it's just like games are just being reduced to skeleton crews within a matter of months. It's just like, what's going on?
No, I agree with a lot of everything you said. And I do agree that there is a big issue with inflation in terms of production costs and how big these areas are being ballooned. But to really kind of go back to the topic, you said that do you feel like the AAA game is dying?
Yes.
And the top of that,
100%. Well, actually, I take that back. I think Western AAA gaming is going to be, it's on death's door right now. Japanese AAA gaming, still mostly good, even though it also has its woes, unless it's from a company like From Software that's mostly pushing out pretty good games like Elden Ring and Armored Core 6. Sekiro. I gotta get back into Sekiro. But yeah, Western gaming is, AAA gaming is on decline, and it's because this is an issue that mostly resides with the AAA gaming space, where they don't know how to manage these budgets. They keep hiring untalented people. They keep pushing out talented people, and then you end up with games that are just either buggy messes or just games with like narratives and stories that are not what the customer wants, and you're just upsetting people to the point where they just want to bow out from gaming altogether. It's not sustainable, and it's only going to get worse unless the industry course corrects. And this is mostly something with the Western industry. It's just bad. Don't know what to say.
Okay. I mean, that's totally fair. So what would be your solution in order to curb a lot of these issues?
Obviously, the biggest way to curb the solution is to cut out the bloat. Get rid of the useless employees. Get rid of the inexperienced employees that you pretty much just brought there to just check a box. Get the people that actually know what they're doing. Do your best to not inflate the budget with unnecessary bells and whistles. Make sure it's affordable. Make sure it's what the customer wants. And the thing is, these Western companies know what people want, but for some reason they don't want to give them what they want. It's actually a little bit frustrating because when you got a game like Power World, a $30 game that manages to sell nearly $20 million in a month, it should tell you something. It should tell you that these games do not have to be that expensive in order to be profitable. It's like, again, this is something that's normally exclusive to the Western industry. And like, I don't know what it's going to take other than a complete market crash to wake these companies up.
Would you say, in terms of the title AAA, do you feel that, and it's actually interesting that you bring a game like Power World up, Um, because now that it's gained the attention of everything you said, the way that I guess I'm looking at the AAA market is that, yeah, maybe these particular games may be struggling right now. They may not be making their returns, but maybe you're starting to see maybe a pendulum split from
pendulum swing, yeah.
swing from the big games to maybe back to more independent games, like a game like Baldur's Gate. Like, remember, Baldur's Gate didn't come with a big budget, I don't believe, and I think you're starting to see maybe where gamers are starting to go back to more niche. I wouldn't say niche, unique experiences that are being introduced to the market.
Okay, so
maybe into that situation.
Okay,
Would you think of games like that? You know. What about that? What's your take?
The thing is about Baldur's Gate 3, I mean, it's in a very...
It's just an example.
It's an anomaly, I would honestly say, because while it is...
Would you say that? Because, like you said, a game like Power World, you would say is an anomaly in itself, right?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But no, look,
like a niche experience?
Well, here's the thing. Again, but Baldur's Gate 3... While it was done by an indie studio, it was built up over years to the point where it can basically be considered a AAA experience. So that's why I say it's an anomaly, even though technically it had went through early access for years before it got like fully released. But yeah, that being said, Larian Studios obviously is a company that's very passionate and obviously wanted to make a game that was very like in depth, that was very much for people who love CRPGs and whatnot. And that's another thing I also have to say is that a lot of these Western game companies, they're not passionate about the games. They are clearly just pushing a game to try to push a profit, to try to make a profit.
In terms of business issues, yes.
Yeah, and just because that's how you end up with games like Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which is a game that's clearly supposed to just be a moneymaker. It's not a game that Arkham fans really ever wanted, and you can tell by the way that the narrative is, by the way that the villains in the game do not hold their special abilities and stuff like that.
I will come to say that to me, as a person who's big into DC and, you know, Elseworld storytelling, I did think the story was a little bit interesting, you know, to my credit. I thought the story was a little interesting. I thought it was a unique take on a different focus on what they would do in Justice League and stuff like that. To me, I can only talk for myself.
Oh, okay.
Like, I'm only talking for myself. I thought the story was a little interesting for that. But in terms of game mechanics, in terms of going into this live action game app, I think does dilute a little bit of the game experience in my opinion. I will agree to you that in some form way. I thought the story was interesting, but again, I can only speak for myself. You know, everybody.
I mean, yeah, I get it. It's different strokes and all that, but
it's my experience.
I wouldn't really say
it's my experience.
I get it. It's just that
like everybody should be able to
obviously
to enjoy individually.
You can like what you like, and I'm not gonna hold that against you, but you gotta definitely accept that you're definitely in the minority here when it comes to
Mike, I totally understand that in terms of story, but I think in terms of, like, again, because story is subjective. Like, everybody's allowed to have that subjective. But in terms of gameplay, like in terms of like how the gameplay system, I would say, yeah, I think that's what hurts the game. I totally understand it's not what Arkham fans liked, but I thought it was an interesting take. Maybe it didn't land like everybody else would have.
I wouldn't even say it's good from a story take, because it basically doesn't take into effect years of DC lore.
What do you mean by that?
It's just like have you read the codex for the game? Like, certain like characters and their bios, and you have like Lex Luthor talking about this and that, and just like it doesn't actually sound like something like Lex Luthor would say. And then you have like story beats like not
Well, I mean,
understanding
you
how.
also have like different in terms of comic books. If we're going by comic books, there are different multiverses and even dark universes too added to DC's like lore too. So there are different versions of Superman and different versions of these characters as well.
that's
They switch up a little
okay,
bit.
but that's true and all, but
So
you're
why
still.
so why would you say like in a game again? I'm not supported. Like
No,
I
no,
still
no,
don't
no.
think it's not. But like in terms of just comic books, in terms of like as a comic book reader, yeah, these are going to be dope. Like the Arkham Asylum has been its own universe. Like in terms of DC, like even when you go back to the Batman Arkham games, like it combines different elements throughout the history of Batman to make its own unique experience.
Yeah, and it's perfectly fine, but the thing is, there's still a consistency between all of the universes, like how Batman acts, how Batman.
Not exactly.
does stuff, like-
No. Not all universes are different. Sometimes they'll switch. Again, there are some key moments. You got to get the key moments right. Like you have to have the thing. However, they will play around with those moments. Some moments where Tom, like again, actually, if you think about, I think Flashpoint. I don't know. Have you watched Flashpoint?
No, I
Did you see
haven't.
where in a situation where it's Bruce Wayne, same back alley situation. However, Thomas Wayne is the one that survives, beats up Joe Chill, and it's Bruce who gets killed, and then Martha is the one who's laughing mechanically as almost like the Joker, and Thomas becomes Batman in that universe. So there are little switches up here and there between different universes and stuff like that in terms of characters. And I kind of look at this as its own unique universe,
if you wanna-
but it has those same. It should, like I said, it has those same beats to it.
Yeah, okay, if you want to judge it completely independently of everything else within like the DC universes, okay, fine. But still, this is supposed to be set in the Arkham universe.
Unique
and
DC universe.
Again, and even it doesn't do that right. Because
Have you played the Arkham games?
I played them here and there, and I could definitely tell just from how they are treated in this game, it's not consistent with the other Arkham games.
Are you talking about story, or are you talking just straight up gameplay? I
Well,
understand
obviously
because the
stories-
gameplay is a little different
Obviously.
than over what they were trying to do.
Obviously, gameplay is just obviously gameplay doesn't obviously is not the same, but story-wise, even that it doesn't really match up.
I totally understand, and I think another thing in terms of certain games, like when you think of AAA games, would we consider Call of Duty a AAA at this point?
It's
Oh, it's been a triple
absolutely.
game. Okay, so I also do think that in terms of the triple game failing too, I think they're also. Do you think that maybe fans have to play some part into that in terms of
Absolutely.
expectation tripping? Because
Absolutely.
I will have to defend certain companies like EA. I'm not like EA.
Yeah, I know.
What's up?
I
But
get you.
you also have to think about games like Activision, where they managed to, I want to say mass produce. They managed to get these games out kind of yearly. However, there are in a weird hard, like a rock and a hard place, in where you have to show some innovation, some uniqueness, yet still manage to keep the same quality of games, pretty much. So, like, even with, like you said, along with those inflates of money that's happened, like you could also understand, like they have to figure a way to keep it fresh and interesting, and that's, you could argue that may hurt some development times in trying to figure unique things out. Like they always have to continue to up the ante in a lot of these AAA games to the point where, like you said, it's not sustainable. It's really not sustainable, and to a point where like a lot of gamers can, I know, maybe overt or build their expectations, which I will say that's a lot on developers, on the publishers, on where they'll announce a game and we'll never hear for it for almost a decade, and then it comes out and it doesn't lead to anybody's expectations, right? But but I do think maybe with a lot of these AAA games, maybe we don't let them have the room to maybe innovate, or do we put maybe too much expectation when they try to bring something unique to the table? I mean,
yes, I do think that the consumer plays a role into what the these developers and publishers do with their games.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry, and I just want to make this point. For like gamers that go out and harass these developers just because they didn't get one, screw you. Go F yourself. Like,
yeah,
that's messed up.
obviously,
Let's not do that.
obviously,
Screw
that's
that.
not cool.
But I'll go back to you. Sorry.
Yeah, like, yeah, obviously, yeah, that's not cool. But at the same time, I can't control what people do. Like, obviously, I will always tell, don't go out and, like, harass people, like, especially the developers, because most developers are just trying to do their job. They're not the ones, like, making the final say of what goes into a game and what doesn't most of the time. But still, at the end of the day, like, these companies are mostly trying to make money, but they have to try to focus on giving what the customer wants, and the customer obviously tries to, like, shout and tell them what they want. But it's complicated. Like, I'm kind of going, or my thoughts are kind of just swirling at the moment.
No, you're right. It is a very complicated situation when you do get like a massive hit. Like, it's always like you kind of have to try to one up yourself.
Yeah, I think a lot of these AAA games are hitting diminishing returns at this point, because how much more can you innovate on a game like Call of Duty, where it's mostly about running and shooting people? Mean the story in the last Call of Duty game, a lot of people said it was abysmal. It was like only like 4 hours long, and mostly it was just like copy and paste stuff from Call of Duty Warzone, and it was just like, yeah, it's just there to try to funnel people towards the multiplayer experience, and just like, it's more or less what we've experienced for years at this point. And at what point do you take a moment to step back and say, okay, we're hitting diminishing returns on this. Maybe we need to try something new.
Yeah, but also going back to that, you also said that, gamers should listen to what people want, and people want is more shooting, right? Like, then like, again, for developers, again, like, now you're going, like, how can we, like, where, like you said, where can we go with this in terms for to continue to meet the demands of the consumer, when, like you said, there's nowhere to go. Like you said, there's only so much we can do until we go into space, or we go from being in a realistic war field into like space and doing some crazy stuff that really goes out from being Call of Duty. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, obviously.
Like,
I mean, and funny thing enough, like I know you're talking about going into space, like Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, which ironically wasn't that bad as much as people made it out to be. But still, like, exactly, it's just like, at least they tried something different. I would say. I mean, to be honest, I think we're getting a little bit off topic at this point.
What about the AAA? Like, is it doomed?
I definitely think.
But it's not really getting off topic, because it's still kind of like you said about, like, the money's getting inflated, but I think it does fit into, like, you have to try to keep this AAA game fresh in order to keep bringing the money in. Like you said, like, there's nothing to go. Like, here's another situation. The Assassin's Creed franchise went through that same situation too. Like, it was kind of the same game almost year from year, and then they ended up switching it up into more like mythology stuff for a little bit. I think Odyssey, Valhalla, and all that stuff, until like there was really nowhere to go until they end up going backwards to the first game because of like diminishing returns and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the thing is about those games, the later games compared to the newer ones, is that they've also tacked on a lot of busy work onto those games, and then they're more of a tedious experience rather than a game that you can kind of just get through, enjoy, and then move on to something else. A lot of these newer games do everything they can to keep you playing in order to either get you to stay hooked into the ecosystem or to buy into microtransactions, and that also turns a lot of people off.
Agreed.
That you're trying to fleece them and milk them for every last dollar they got. And it's also turning people off. Again, pointing out to a game like Power World, a game that's only $30 and gives you like hours of entertainment. And it's not a live service game. It's a game that you can pick up and play whenever you want. You don't have to be connected to the internet. You can do so many things with it where you can tweak the experience out. The game supports mods. The game had dedicated servers, and it just offers so many opportunities for a casual or hardcore gaming experience. And the best part is that because it's early access, the game is just getting started. They're going to add so much more to this game, and it's going to give you so much value for that $30. And it kind of shows and proves that you don't need to stick all these microtransactions and battle passes and live service models onto these games to be profitable.
That is true, and it's actually great that you are mentioning a game like Power World. Like you said, it's making a lot of money too at this point. What happens if Power World starts getting into that AAA category?
I mean, it could, but from what I've heard with the developer,
that's not really going to be decided by the developer. That's going to be decided by how much money that's being profited, though.
Yeah, well, you can make a lot of money and still stay independent.
Yeah, but like Power World is like, say if the success continues with a game like this, and it's it's reaping in the financial success. Don't you think it makes that kind of jump? Because like I think about like a game like a Call of Duty. Call of Duty wasn't that big. It was like a PC game until it made its way into 360. Was Modern Warfare 2, and that blew up. It jumped to AAA status.
I mean, I don't want to say that Call of Duty, the old school games, were triple.
No, it wasn't. It said after once like it hit console on 360. I feel like I remember that's when it became a AAA game because Modern Warfare sold pretty well. Like it went from World War II into the modern day.
I get it. I guess you're implying that because it's making money, that expectations are gonna go up for what the experience can be delivered on.
With any game like that at the moment?
I mean, it really depends on the developer. If they want to shoot for higher, lofty ambitions or stay on the straight and narrow. At the moment with a game like Power World, it doesn't seem like they're gonna go shooting for the moon. I think they're just gonna stick to their roadmap at the moment and just focus on making a game that they originally intended. I don't think they're going to let all this money get to their head, but who knows? They probably might do a 180 and say, let's go full AAA, battle pass, microtransactions, but it doesn't seem like they're gonna be doing that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that too, because like you said, going back to what you said, it's also about delivering on fan service, and the fan service like, hey, we want more of this, more of that, more of that. Like I said, hopefully they're listening to the fans. I don't know what happens. Maybe they make a Power World 2. Who knows? You know, you kind of have to like levy those expectations. It feels like Power World is having a killer month. Like I'm happy for that game. Like, dude, I've seen it play. It looks fun. No, but yeah, you once like you said, the money starts coming in, when you start rolling into like those triple figures, man, you feel like expectations change up a little bit.
I think it
raises up your stock in that game, don't you think?
It depends, because again, like the Pocket Pair, the company that developed Power World, is independent, and they, even though they're working with Microsoft, and there is rumors that Microsoft might want to like buy out Pocket Pair, but it doesn't seem like that deal is going through at the moment. And personally speaking, I do hope that Pocket Pair stays independent, because that's a big reason why I bought into this game. Because again, it's a game that's obviously not corrupted by like, you know, AAA greed and whatnot, and it's just trying to make a fun game.
Yeah. And here's one more thing you have to remember. Remember, we're in 2024. There's a big game that is going to drop in the next couple of years, in the next year, and that game is GTA 6, which, by the way, rumors has it that this could be the first game to have a production quality of 1 billion. That's what I've heard. I mean, you can argue that, yeah, you can say that in terms of Western development, AAA game's dead, but that game's coming around and everybody's been hyping that game up for a long time. And on top of that, you think about, not only was like GTA 5 great, that game had an amazing life because of the online community and the content that was created moving from that. So maybe that's an outlier. Maybe GTA 6 becomes a big outlier for that. But I mean, that might be a model that a lot of people are trying to strive for.
I mean,
you don't think?
I disagree. I don't think that just because like a company like Rockstar that's been around for years, who's known for making these big budget video games, is something that every like big gaming company wants to strive for. I mean, Pocket Pair is a company that most people didn't even know existed until a month ago.
Yeah, but we're not talking about Pocket. Like, we're sticking with our OG companies. Like, EA wants that. Like, EA wants that.
Obviously.
Activision wants that. Like Microsoft wants that. Like, those are the cats that want that kind of prestige. Like, I feel like those are the companies I feel like we're focusing more on, you know, in terms of that. But you know what? I know we talked very long length about it with AAA Game Design, and I think you may have already mentioned the fact that you have a solution to that. So yeah, but I think personally, I just think maybe just like the pendulum is just simply swinging into more interesting titles. Like, I think those games are just going to dwindle down a little bit. Not to say that I hope they still stay around, because I think they still have some great narratives and stuff like that. But I think just slowly,
I absolutely believe that these big AAA games are becoming less and less lucrative. I think more
lucrative, yes. I agree. But I think story-wise, I see they're still stronger than ever.
Debatable. I would say this is debatable in terms of even storytelling. But I think that a lot of people are going to start shifting more towards indie and AA gaming, because there are quality experiences that are in between. Biggest example, RoboCop Rogue City. That's a FPS shooter slash like cop drama game that absolutely has like good quality, but it's not quite AAA. But you can tell just by the gameplay and the storytelling, it's a game that was made with so much love.
Mm-hmm. They really loved the source material.
It's a Van Hoven. Like, what's the name of the guy? It's like Van Hoven. Is that the name of the director of the RoboCop movies? I had to look his name, but you can tell that they took his inspiration as much as possible. Alex Murphy. Yeah, like. You can tell that they took inspiration for. I'm sorry, I have to go look up his name again, because I'm keeping getting it wrong. I don't want to keep like butchering the guy's name. But yeah, they took inspiration from the director of the RoboCop movies so much. Obviously, leaning more into RoboCop 1 than RoboCop 2, with like, you know, the humanity of Alex Murphy and just writing the line between him being a machine and a man. And just the violence and the humor, just the whole setting is it's just like, you can tell it was made with love, man.
No, I agree. No, I think there's going to be a lot of passion projects that, like I do think gamers should always have a nice variety of a little bit of AAA, but a little bit more indie too. I think everybody should be able to, you know, mix it up a little bit and not be so stuck on certain games a little bit. But I also do think, like you said, in terms of those companies, I think they have to be willing to take risk. I think that's the number one thing too. I think they have to be willing to go out of their safety comfort zones of these games. Like you said, they're only diminishing returns, and maybe that, unfortunately, that money cow is starting to dry up. Those others are starting to dry up real quick. So I think these companies have to, for the sake of their company before it bursts, they really do need to maybe step out of the side of the zone and hopefully take risk. But, you know, that's also another issue too, because, you know, if the game's not, if the fans don't show up to support these games, you know, even with big companies, how can they make that pivot? But maybe that's another discussion for another day.
Yep. And I'd say this is a perfect time to stop, because it's almost like 50 minutes that we've been rambling for a while, and I kind of went off on a tangent here and there.
To ramble.
Yeah, it was a good ramble though. I would say. But yeah, I would definitely say that like the AAA industry is, well, mostly for the Western side. They need to get their shit together. Otherwise, they're gonna have to deal with a second gaming crash. And I'm not sure how that's going to look once the smoke clears, man.
Yeah, no, I agree.
But anyway, what do you guys think? Do you think that the AAA industry, especially for the Western side, is in a healthy spot right now, or do you think they're slowly approaching a second like gaming crash? So let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, that's it for this podcast. So I'd like to say, if you really like this, please rate, comment, and subscribe. I'm Mikedot. This is Afromania, and I'm saying peace.
Peace.